Hello, everyone. Let's go around the Big Ten today with some transfer portal talk. The portal is on fire right now, and the Big Ten is obviously no exception to that. There are some very interesting names in the portal right now. One of the more fascinating things to kind of watch here the last few days is it looks like there's a lot of guys who are transferring within the conference, like Big Ten schools poaching other Big Ten schools. That's a theme we're seeing right now. We're seeing it a little, we're seeing it in the SEC as well. We're seeing it other places, but it seems to be very prominent right now with some big names that the Big Ten is kind of poaching each other right now. But lots of interesting stuff going on here, Chip, the last few days. Let's dive into it. For me, like the quarterback position is always the most fascinating part of the transfer portal because there can be only one guy. You can't, you don't want to be playing 2-3 quarterbacks. The money, the NIL deals that these guys command, and just the domino effect that one can have on 3 or 4 other situations is always really fascinating and is kind of unlike the other positions we're going to be talking about. But some very interesting names in the portal. Beau Pribula from Penn State, the backup at Penn State, is in the portal. He will not be with Penn State for their playoff game. Devin Brown, Ohio State's backup, is in the portal, will be with the Buckeyes for the playoff game for them. And you've got Billy Edwards Jr. from Maryland, Alex Orji from Michigan, Aaron Noland again from Ohio State, another former very highly rated guy. Look at all these options. Like it's almost like a race to the portal. Like 1 or 2 guys went in, and it's like everybody's like, "Oh, I better get in too. Better try and get a head start on finding my spot."
Yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just of the mindset that I completely, maybe you disagree, but I'm of the mindset that the timing of this is just so bad as it relates to obviously being an Ohio State fan, but just I genuinely feel sorry for the players as well as the programs that are involved in the college football playoff. Penn State, you mentioned Beau Pribula. I mean, that's something where James Franklin, like he kind of said, like somebody needs to kind of be in charge of college football because just the timing of this, it's just really unfortunate in the sense that I'm thinking as if I was a player, I want to, like you said, I want to get my spot. I want to make sure that when the music stops that I've got a chair, so to speak. But all right, on the other hand, it's one of these things where you've been a part of a program that is contending potentially for a national championship. So you are kind of leaving your teammates in the lurch. So it's just kind of crazy trying to keep up with who's going where, who's entering the portal, who's, like you said, kind of within conference, what kind of decisions that is impacting the other players on those respective teams. It's truly difficult to kind of keep up with it.
Yeah, no, there's no doubt. You can't have free agency during the playoffs. Like this cannot be a thing. It's not just that it puts the playoff teams at a disadvantage, which it does, but it's just bad for the sport. Like you don't want teams to be in situations where like they're down to not having any twos at certain positions. Like they're basically just down to like their starters at certain positions. It's just not good for the sport. You want teams as close to full strength as they can be at this time of year, and they've got to figure this out. And I think maybe this will be this will set the alarm bells that if for some reason they didn't realize how messed up this was, they do now. But the interesting thing, here again, we're getting into like some of these quarterback situations, and some of these guys, like a Billy Edwards Jr., Wisconsin emerging right now as the favorite. Michigan obviously was interested. These are very interesting situations to me to watch, like quarterbacks, especially going from one conference school to the other, and kind of what that could mean, and just the different rivalries that can kind of come out of that. We know fans don't take this stuff kind of personally. The players, I think, just view it as business decisions and things like that, but the fans take this personally. And you even got some back and forth now with like Michigan fans and Wisconsin fans over Billy Edwards Jr. But it looks like he's going to go to Wisconsin. Like this is a huge deal, I think, for Fickell in terms of he's going to try to patch this together from the portal, it looks like, this offseason, both at quarterback because he has to, because all his quarterbacks transferred, and just because they need something. They need to switch this up. But this feels high risk, high reward for Fickell, the way he's kind of approaching this offseason with the portal.
This is the third year in a row where Luke Fickell is going into a season with a transfer portal quarterback. Now, in fairness, I recognize the fact that, when he came in, and trying to, implement the offense that didn't work, it kind of necessitated, all right, we need to make some decisions here. But, last year, with Tyler Van Dyke, like you said, like the possibility of Billy Edwards Jr. and with social media, kind of the rumor, that's kind of the inclination that Billy Edwards might be leaning towards Wisconsin. Danny O'Neill did commit to Wisconsin earlier today. So, I mean, it's just one of these things where it kind of that old cliche about, trying to fix the plane while it's in midair and you're trying to land it. I mean, for Wisconsin, they don't really know what they want to do offensively. I know that, the offensive coordinator is going to be the crucial hire for Luke Fickell. And I'm not trying to bash any of these players that decide to go to Wisconsin, but it just is the timing of everything, like you said, it couldn't be any worse.
Yeah, I do wonder how Fickell's going to manage all that. I mean, ideally, you'd like your offensive coordinator's input on these types of major decisions you're making. So we'll see, where that goes. Obviously different, Beau Pribula is not going to be with Penn State. Devin Brown will be with Ohio State. I don't think Noland will be with Ohio State. I mean, he's pretty far down the depth chart anyway, but so Ohio State will have their backup on Saturday night. Penn State will not have their backup this weekend. And I actually think that's a big deal for Penn State. I mean, Pribula has gotten legitimate playing time this year. He does bring a little bit of a different element than Drew Aller. Do I think it's something that's, could drastically like swing the game? I don't know if I would go that far, but this isn't like a nothing for me. I think the Devin Brown thing is kind of like whether he stays or not would be only really matter if Will Howard were to get injured in a game. But like Pribula plays. So this is going to be interesting for me with Penn State this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, just to kind of touch on both players in their different situations. With Devin Brown, I respect the fact that he when he made his announcement, he said, I want to stay with my brothers and help them win the national championship. And that's all fine and good. And I think it's admirable. What I find kind of what I just kind of question is, all right, I'm just thinking best case scenario, Ohio State goes on this 4-game run. They do win the national championship. Now you're into January. I just don't understand where Devin Brown, I use the idea of like musical chairs, like, okay, unless he has some kind of a secret agreement already made that hasn't been disclosed. And if he does, all power to him. But I'm just kind of wondering how that's going to work in January if he's far down the road with Ohio State as a contributor to their playoff chances. And kind of switching over to Beau Pribula, like you said, he has been a part of Penn State's offense. He's been kind of that changeup, that guy that's been coming in. On a personal level, I respect the fact that, you want these young men to feel happy and feel that they have a chance to progress at the sport that they are successful in. I just genuinely thought maybe I'm overanalyzing this. I really thought that he was kind of more the future direction that Penn State offensively wanted to take. No disrespect to Drew Aller. I know that, he's very talented, and he made his declaration that he's going to be at Penn State, which probably was a major factor in Pribula's decision. But getting back to Beau Pribula, that I really thought offensively, from what we saw, from Penn State, that not that they struggled with Drew Aller, but I just kind of thought that he kind of represented a little bit more of what Penn State wanted to do offensively. Maybe I'm in the minority on that. But it was kind of that announcement was probably out of this list of quarterbacks that we've seen within the Big Ten. I thought that was probably the most surprising.
I think both these situations kind of tell us a little bit about the future of these two programs. I think Beau Pribula's situation obviously tells us, Drew Aller situation, certainly, that he's going to be the starting quarterback next year for Penn State. And I think Devin Brown's situation probably gives us some insight into how Ohio State feels about Julian Sayin and Aaron Noland, for that matter, who also transferred. I think those two transfers tell us a lot about Ohio State's future at quarterback with Julian Sayin. Now, I think Ohio State will go to the portal for a quarterback. And I think the debate has been, are they going to go to the portal for a quarterback for like a veteran depth, third or fourth string body, practice guy, veteran leadership, mentor the young guys, or would they go for a big fish if one comes out into the portal? And the hot name there is Quinn Ewers at Texas. Look, like Arch Manning is going to be Texas's quarterback next year, so Quinn Ewers has a decision to make. Quinn Ewers has to go to the NFL, or he's got to go somewhere else, because they are not going to sit Arch Manning again next year. Like that I have that on very good authority. Like Arch Manning's our quarterback next year. So let's play the what if. Like if you were Ohio State, would you pursue Quinn Ewers?
I wouldn't, simply for the fact that it is kind of, the fact that, he was here before, and I realized it was just kind of the timing was just bad with Quinn Ewers. I genuinely believe he is going to the NFL, but that's just, again, just one person's opinion. I think that Quinn Ewers, probably, like you said, sees the writing on the wall. I think he's going to try and do what he can to take Texas far into the playoffs and prepare himself for an NFL career. But to your point about going after a veteran to kind of be like that calming mentor leadership person, the chugging off kind of a role that we saw from Ohio State a few years ago. I think that's kind of what the direction that they would take, simply because they do have a lot of young talent in that room that highly recruited, like the guy that I think that the average fan completely forgets about, but like Lincoln Kienholz. Let's not forget the fact that Lincoln Kienholz, he was thrust into action as a true freshman in the bowl game, wasn't prepared, but he was a guy that, he could have gone to Washington, chose to come to Ohio State because he felt that it would better prepare him. So I think Lincoln Kienholz probably in his mind is like, okay, I'm only one play away, that he can compete for that starting position. We already know about Tavian St. Clair coming in. So I think it would be more along the lines of, all right, let's bring in a veteran guy to kind of be that calming influence. But again, maybe I'm mistaken.
I think the Ewers thing is fascinating. There are, in my opinion, so few quarterbacks that could be in the portal that could drastically alter a season for someone next year. I think Ewers is one of them. He's that perfect, like, sweet spot of has not played himself into like the top 10 of the NFL draft. There's a lot of people think he's like QB 5, 6, 7 even in this upcoming NFL draft. But he's been a very, very good college quarterback. Mm-hmm. So that's going to be interesting. Someone could throw a big $4, $5, $6 million figure at him for 1 year, keep him out of the draft, and say, hey, you can make X amount more by being QB1, QB2 next year versus coming out and being QB5 or something like that. We'll see. Personally, my instinct would be that Quinn has not even made that decision because his draft stock could drastically change over the next few weeks.
Absolutely.
So, if Texas sputters, in a few days and he plays poorly, his value, I think, takes a pretty big hit with the NFL. Now, on the other side of things, I think there's guys he can jump. Certainly can play his way very, very highly. Gosh, we saw, and this is kind of a different situation, but like just as an example of how a 3 or 4 game stretch can change your fortunes, like Cardale Jones probably should have went pro after his championship run at Ohio State, because people were talking about him like working his way all the way into the late first, early second round off of like a nothing sample size, like a 3 games sample size basically. And this is obviously Ewers has a much more clear body of work here, but if he would get hot and they would go on a run here, I mean, that could cost, or that could be worth millions of dollars to him in the NFL draft pecking order. So that's going to be interesting for me to watch. With some of these other guys, like, again, Edwards is looking like Wisconsin. Alex Orji, should he not change positions at this point? Like, what are we doing here?
Yeah, I mean, and this is, maybe I'm probably mistaken in this analogy, and I'm drawing a blank. I can't believe I am, but the Penn State quarterback who transitioned to fullback for the San Francisco 49ers, he played quarterback. I mean, we're talking again, 20 years ago. I look at Alex Orji. I mean, the way that Michigan used him as a back, and that's not a bad thing, is that, okay, he was, he's a physical player. I just think that, genuinely speaking, he is more of a running back at the next level than quarterback. I think Michigan took him, thought, all right, maybe we can develop him. Maybe it was a lack of the coaching on the staff that kind of hurt Alex Orji. But by the same token, I think they kind of took what they had and said, all right, we want to use you, but this is the best we can do. So if I was Orji, I would certainly contemplate going to a program that would allow him to not only play, but play more at the position. Let's face it, like Tim Tebow, I mean, he did himself no favors trying to play quarterback at Florida when it was clearly obvious when he got to the next level that he wasn't a quarterback. It didn't work out. So why not spend some time in the college ranks working on being a running back, or some kind of a player that, with the ball in your hands, that at the next level it translates better.
Yeah, I would start the H-back conversion right now, but we'll see what happens there. That's tough to get guys off of that sometimes. Not just quarterbacks though going on, couple interesting portal entries, like Quentin Joyner, USC, very talented running back at USC. He's in the portal. Ohio State's lurking there. Ohio State's going to go after a running back in the portal. Obviously, they're in on Justice Haynes as well. They're going to want to come out of this. They had a nice thing going this year with Travion Henderson. You bring in Quinshon Judkins. You kind of have your 1-2 punch. I think they want to duplicate that next year with James Peoples, who is a very talented freshman there. And, whether it's Joyner or Haynes or whoever it might be, add a very talented back with them. Again, we do this to Lincoln Riley so much, but it's like the exodus of talent. Like, USC is not trimming the fat in the portal. They're losing legitimate playmakers. They're losing legitimate guys from their roster. They've lost a receiver. They've lost now a running back, some defensive players. Like, what is going on there? And if this, if someone like Joyner ends up at Ohio State, I mean, how big of a pickup is that for the Buckeyes?
That'd be huge. And three quick thoughts. The first is Michael Robinson was the Penn State quarterback. It was driving me insane, so I had to do that. Secondly, to your point about USC, and let's throw out Quinn Ewers. Like, who wouldn't want, like USC could benefit from that. But to your point, the larger point about USC, this is a pivotal offseason. We're not in the offseason yet, but it's going to be when you talk about the loss of talent that USC is experiencing. They're not paying. I say this, and I'm not gunning for anyone's job, that I don't want to see anyone lose their job, but the USC powers that be are not paying the money that they are to Lincoln Riley to be in the Las Vegas Bowl against Texas A&M. They are expecting big results, and they're not getting. And the exodus of talent via the transfer portal, or possibly declaring for the NFL draft, certainly isn't helping. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting to see what direction Lincoln Riley takes, when the 2024 season ends for USC.
Yeah, so that'll be one to watch as well. Potential Big Ten to Big Ten movement. I know Ohio State's really after Joyner. Another interesting player enters the portal today. Minnesota redshirt freshman offensive tackle Phillip Daniels. Now, this is the type of player who could command a very big market. He started the last 4 games as a freshman for Minnesota at right tackle. Played very well there. Was in line to, of course, be their starter next year. Has theoretically 3 years left. Premium position. Ohio State's already expressed interest in the last couple hours since he entered the portal. I suspect Ohio State's not going to be the only major program to do so. I suspect he's going to have a lot, especially in the Big Ten. The teams that have seen him or know him are going to be very, very active with Phillip Daniels. This is a kid who came out of Cincinnati Princeton a couple years ago, was super talented, super athletic. I thought it was a steal at the time for Minnesota. Just needed a little seasoning, just a little more experience, and has developed himself into a pretty good prospect here. Again, Phillip Daniels, what, Ohio State obviously probably searching for 2 tackles, right, in the portal?
Oh, yeah. Well, I can't imagine that it's only 2. I would just, I think Phillip Daniels, that has to be a call. I mean, as well as I do, and I apologize if I offend anyone that is from the Cincinnati area, but Cincinnati, the people down there and traditionally, like it's kind of like this weird relationship with Ohio State. So I don't want to, just because he's from Ohio, presume that, an Ohio kid, he'll naturally want to play for Ohio State. Cincinnati kids kind of, like they traditionally have kind of marched to the beat of their own drummer. That being said, you would know better than I if Phillip Daniels grew up maybe an Ohio State fan and was feeling snubbed and hurt by the fact that Ohio State didn't recruit him and that he went to Minnesota. Like you said, he, potentially with 3 years of eligibility, he could slide right in to a critical position on the Ohio State offensive line. But absolutely, Ohio State has to be hitting the transfer portal for offensive linemen, not only to start, but for depth purposes, because we've seen it as Ohio State fans. We've seen 2 significant injuries to the offensive line, and they're trying to make do as best they can with reshuffling and moving players around. But let's face it, going into next year, you're going to be losing players to eligibility. They basically are done. So the Ohio State offensive line is going to have to be completely reconfigured again. So Phillip Daniels would be a plug-and-play starter at right tackle. The fact that he's from Ohio is just the cherry on top, so to speak.
Yeah, so he came out of Princeton High School, which is the same high school that Paris Johnson came out of after he transferred from St. X. So there's a relationship there with Paris Johnson. Daniels camped at Ohio State. They didn't offer him. Definitely wanted the offer. $1 million question is always, of course, like, this could go either way. He could be upset and now the shoe's on the other foot and he has a chance to spurn them, or it's like, well, this is where I wanted to be. This is the offer I wanted. Let's let the past be the past and go, go home or whatever. I think Ohio State's probably going to get Phillip Daniels, and I think that's going to be a big pickup for them if that happens. But that's my read on it so far. Just him being in the portal a few hours, but that's my read on it so far, is that Ohio State's going to be tough to beat for Phillip Daniels as a landing spot. More names will continue to flood into the portal, I'm sure. Oregon. We didn't talk about Oregon. They are really putting it together right now in the portal. They're off to a great start in the portal.
Oh, yeah. Well, I mean, Dylan Thieneman would have been nice for Ohio State, but let's face it. I mean, as soon as we'd have to be completely naive as soon as he announced that he was going to be interested, or that there was an interest in Oregon and Ohio State, that Oregon wasn't going to be a major player for Dylan Thieneman. Congratulations to that young man. I still believe when it comes to, a player like Dylan Thieneman or his teammate, Max Clare at tight end for Purdue, this is just a situation in the grand scheme of things, how daunting of a task this is going to be for Barry Odom and Purdue, because, I mean, let's face it, they had a horrible season in 2024. Now, what talent you did have on hand is taking advantage of the transfer portal opportunities. But yeah, getting back to your point overall, Oregon, they have come into the Big Ten and like a bull in a china shop. Like they have set up promptly. And, like if there's like, oh, like I'm supposed to be in awe and reverential to the traditional Big Ten powers. Obviously, they did not get the memo. They're coming in, they're serving notice. The fact that they're number 1 seed in the college football playoff, the fact that they won the conference championship first year. We talked last week about how nice the schedule in 2025 sets up for them. And oh, by the way, we're just going to restock an already talented roster via the transfer portal with players like Dylan Thieneman and others, just to kind of make sure that, we're going to be here and you better get used to it.
Yeah, that was one of the big transfer portal pickups so far of like this first week was Dylan Thieneman to Oregon. Very, very talented safety that Ohio State also wanted. So they beat Ohio State out. It was kind of a head-to-head there. They got the first visit and he canceled the Ohio State. So it just never
right.
They were able to kind of go in there, swing first, and they hit the home run and ended the game. So really, really nice pickup there for Oregon, who continues to roll high school recruiting transfer portal on the field. Dan Lanning is got things rolling right now in Eugene. So that was a huge pickup there. We'll continue to stay on top of this stuff. We're going to also, our midweek episode, we're going to talk about the playoff games this coming weekend. Obviously, we'll talk the Big Ten angles and things like that, but we'll talk a little bit about all of them. Do the playoff predictions and any new portal news, because we're a couple days away from recording our midweek episode, and a couple of days in transfer portal time is an eternity. So there could be like 20 big names in the portal between now and then that we haven't even talked about. So exactly. We will stay on top of all that with you guys as well. But just want to go over the portal stuff. Fascinating time right now. A lot of Big Ten schools jockeying for position right now in the portal, trying to get themselves situated for next year. You've got kids transferring from one Big Ten school to the other. You've got Big Ten schools going head to head for some of these big names that are both in the conference and from out of conference. So all sorts of craziness going on. It is definitely the crazy time of year with the portal, but that's going to do it for this episode. Again, we'll be back here in a couple days with playoff predictions and previews and any pertinent transfer portal updates. But thanks everyone again for watching and listening, and we will see you soon.
Goodbye.